وصحبه أجمعين. Conference Chairman and CEO of ACCIN, Allied Coordinating Council of Islamic NGOs, Tuan Haji IR Muhammad Jamaluddin Shamsuddin, leaders of faith organizations and NGOs, distinguished speakers and panelists, and conference delegates from Australia, Brunei, Singapore, Sri Lanka, South Africa, Taiwan, and of course, Malaysia itself, comprising of people from various faiths and ethnic backgrounds. By the grace of God, after months of planning and preparation, we have finally managed to organize quite painstakingly this IIPC, the International Interfaith Peace Conference, for the second time in a row in Malaysia. In fact, the planning started from last year itself, at the end of the conference last year, which was a very successful one. And we were energized to immediately start preparing for this year's conference with a bigger audience. So the 2022 IIPC actually focused on the fundamental value of compassion in interacting with people of other faiths and ethnicities. And this year's conference targets to build on that with the theme of working together towards a respectful and cohesive society. So we actually, for this year, registrations for both the Youth Congress and the conference have actually exceeded our expectations. So unlike last year, we've had to close the registrations as of yesterday. So that is good news actually for us. So, and this Youth Congress is a very vital part of the IIPC. So it's not like tomorrow is the main event. So this is not just a sideshow. This is a very important component because many of us in the organizing committee are already in our 60s. And basically we have one foot in the grave already. So it is you, the youth, who we are hoping to be the torchbearers to carry on the message of peace and harmony to as wide an audience as possible. So with that, without much further ado, I would like to invite Tuan Haji IR Jamaluddin Shamsuddin to give his opening remarks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Peace be upon you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, moderators, panelists, Mr. Sharul Ahmad, the moderator for this forum this evening, Secretary General of IKRAM, Lawyer Adli from ABIM, lawyer kan? Lawyer buruk lawyer, and aptly dressed as a youth. I'm trying to look young, but that is a real young person. And then you have also Dr. C.Y. Hun from University of Darussalam. And Dr. Alwani, is she here? Not yet. Dr. Alwani will be here later from University Malaya. And we also have Karina O'Reilly from Australia, Toowoomba, Australia, sweating it out now on her first public appearance to share her experience, very long experience in Australia, not so long. So thank you very much. We appreciate your opinion and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time to attend the IIPC Youth Congress, Youth Forum, and it's held today in the beautiful city of Kuala Lumpur. And the topic of focus today is the role of youth in working towards a respectful and cohesive society in line with the theme of tomorrow's conference. The main conference is tomorrow, and it would be officiated by the Minister of Unity, National Minister of Unity. To the international delegates, both the youth, yeah, I think Dr. Hun was asking, I see more old people than younger. I said, no, there's a lot of young people around. And some of us are young at heart. Yeah. Some very old people trying to look young. So it's a nice mix. And really the question about Adli question is the youth. Should they be doing the things on their own or the old men doing it on their own? I think it should be a collaboration, working together, sharing the experience and producing the best results from that different segments of society. Yeah? And we will have a very exciting program this evening, and there'll be a forum, there'll be a talk, and also there'll be a dialogue. And we have a very well-known icon today with us. I would not indicate who he is. It's going to be a surprise. He'll be here at the dialogue at 8 o'clock tonight. We have at the third floor, we will have dinner and dialogue. So you can really put him to test. And anyone know who's coming? Good, fantastic. I think thank you very much. I think working committee has done a good job by not informing who he is. It's going to be a surprise. He's a national icon who will be with us. Yeah, and I think what we are all searching for is what is the role of the youth in the future generation. We want to sit down, put our minds together, and see what we can conjure. And because the future generation is so important, because you are going to shape the future of the nation, the future of mankind. So we would need to really understand, because the challenges, I think one of the questions that we're going to ask the icon is, how did you face your challenges during your time? And what do you think are the challenges of the youth now, coming from quite a senior person? It'd be interesting to see what his inputs are. And with all the changes, artificial intelligence is exciting. They say in 10 years' time, artificial intelligence is going to be a $15 trillion economy. Now it's probably about less than 1 trillion, but it's going to be 15 times. And how are we going to handle it? Where is our place? Yeah. I asked my nephew, who is an engineer and also data scientist. He did his master's in data scientist. Now he's working on this application of artificial intelligence. And I asked him a few weeks back, I said, is it a threat? Is artificial intelligence a threat to jobs, to mankind, to the youth, to the working class? This is something that we can discuss and find out. But his position was that he said most of this artificial intelligence work is done in the computers. You're not using or applying artificial intelligence to robotics. So the danger is not there yet in terms of artificial intelligence taking over. I don't know, there's some artificial intelligence lecturers or professors here, I'm not sure. But that was something that we need to talk about. And then we also have Elon Musk. Elon Musk, I think if he can give us one share of his idea, that would be great. He just formed a company called X AI, small X AI dot, I think. I don't know how many trillion he's going to make out of it. And when he's into it, Masayoshi Sen, the Japanese investor, he said, I am going all out for artificial intelligence. That means he's an investor. He in startups, he's going to invest in artificial intelligence companies, all out. Yeah, that means he's moving from the traditional technology companies to the artificial intelligence. What it does, I don't know. I'm still young at heart, but really my interest is somewhere else. But the youth, you must look at your future. What you expect? Yeah. Hakim, welcome. That's my son. And with all these changes, I think we, some of faith people, religious people, people who believe, we think that we need values and a strong base of character also. You know, besides all your equipment, knowledge, skills, experience, we need to have a basis of character and to be grounded successfully to face these challenges. And why I say so, because 80% of the world's population professes a belief in religion. So whether you like it or not, it is the fundamental religion or spirituality. It's very important as a basis of character building. In Malaysia, it's even stronger. Yeah, religious values and religious identity is so strong that it has to be in the forefront. Yeah, you can't push it to the back. It's very important among all religious adherents. We are not talking about only Islam. We're talking about Islam, Hinduism, Chinese beliefs, Buddhism, and so on. So this is something that we think is important, and good values like honesty, sincerity, respect, patience. I think these are very important. Everybody has the same inspiration. Everyone wants a decent life. Yeah, they want good, peaceful life for themselves and for their children, their future generation. So I cannot run away. Dato, run away from Gandhi's words. I mean, a lot of sages, prophets have mentioned it, but the simple thing is, there's something for everyone's needs, but not for everyone's greed. I think this is what's happening, and I'm personally I'm fearful of the situation now because the situation in Ukraine, for example, is a serious thing. In my belief, I mean, of course, we will say, it's not a problem. Nobody dares press the nuclear button, but if it's mistakenly pressed, there is no way back. You can't reverse. And if you press that nuclear button, it's 100 or 1,000 times stronger than Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We are all gone. Ukraine is very far, but once you end up with a ice age, yeah, I think Agnew knows. There's no more farms. There's no more feed, livestock, and this is serious. But my good friend Dr. Michael was saying not to worry. They will never do it. But it's just a button away. And remember, our great president Donald Trump said, "My button is bigger than yours." Yeah, he told Kim Jong-un. Yeah, so he's playing around with this, and this can mean the end of life as we know. Yeah? So this is something that is of concern to us. So, ladies and gentlemen, concluding, I feel we all, in fact, what we are doing now is dialogue and interaction, which is key to respect and cohesiveness that we are talking about. We want respectfulness and cohesiveness within a society, and dialogue and interaction is the key. Without this dialogue and interaction, what happens is problems like Islamophobia, hate speech, disharmony, and parroting of the politicians. For example, politicians with their own agenda, their own narratives, and you have large sections of the people following them, without even thinking. And this is also a serious issue. The concept of li ta'arufu in the Quran, chapter Al-Hujarat, verse 13, in the Al-Quran, it says God has created different tribes and people. It's not only to know each other. It's more than that. It's about peaceful coexistence. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's about peaceful coexistence. It's about honor. It's about respect. It's about human dignity. It's about peace, about freedom and prosperity for all. There cannot be human dignity without prosperity, ataupun basic needs for human beings. So I think with that, I would say just a small note of the experience that we've all gone through, the COVID-19. if you can see if there's an external threat, how we work together and how we actually were concerned for each other and helping each other. It was wonderful. We live in housing estates where everybody goes out in the cars and then come back and then they're inside. And there's hardly any interaction except for the children outside in the playground. But when the COVID happened, we all in the house, but in the evening we could have come out, and then we were all talking to each other, laughing and feeling so good that we can at least come out of the house. And this spirit now is gone. It's gone back in. Everybody is on their own. Yeah. So how do we bring this spirit up? I think this is a challenge that we have to think about. Um, with that, I think we have and one thing that I want to mention is also the Malaysian Solidarity COVID Fund, where 20 religious NGOs got together, led by Buddhist Searchi, and we collected $38 million ringgit in 3 months, and it was contributed to about 38 hospitals all over Malaysia, especially for equipments and critical equipments in the CCUs, ICUs, and so on. 38 million in 3 months. It was a fantastic show of humanity, love, respect, and concern for fellow citizens. So that, myself being directly involved, it is something that is so touching, and actually it shows us that humanity or human beings are good people. So we have to be careful, those who fan hatred, fan negativity. We have to push that thoughts away and go back to our nature as good people. So I wish happy deliberation for tonight, this evening and tonight, and I hope everybody benefits from the sessions. For those who are attending tomorrow's conference, welcome, and we have a whole day of program, and we will try to give the best to all. So for any shortcomings, please pardon us, and we will try to do our best to meet the objectives of the conference and the Youth Congress today. So sekian, wabillahi taufiq, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Tuan Haji Jamal, thank you for your opening address. And it's now, we are running against time here, so we would like to move into the first forum of the evening. And with that, I would like to invite our moderator for the forum session, Haji Shahrul Aman, and the panelists, Professor Dr. Hun Chang Yao from Brunei University, Encik Adli Zakwan, and Ms. Karina O'Reilly to take the stage. Please proceed.
Thank you, Adam. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening to all. Tachahau, Vanakkam. I'm actually quite jiggly. Reason being, I told Jamal, this is my first time ever being a moderator for a forum. I've never been a moderator for a forum. Of the many times I've been on stage, on TV, never been. But for Jamal's sake, I'm up here. So, ladies and gentlemen, friends from Malaysia, from Australia, from Egypt, and from the various religious groups, thank you for coming. Hopefully, this evening will be an enlightening one. We have a very exciting line of panels here. We have Professor C.Y. Hun from Brunei University. We have Karina O'Reilly from Australia, the youngest in the group. Actually, I was quite surprised when I knew her age. But I am very much with full of respect that this is the first time traveling overseas and she's managed to come on stage. Give her a round of applause. Yeah. And Brother Adli from ABIM, a very prominent youth group in Malaysia. Yeah. So today we will be speaking on something very, very important, the role of youth in the development of a cohesive and caring society. And if Jamal quoted Mahatma Gandhi, I would like to quote another prominent scholar from around the region, from Indonesia, Hamka. Let me say it in Malay first. Kemajuan suatu bangsa tidak tergantung kepada jumlah manusianya, tetapi tergantung kepada pemuda-pemudinya yang penuh bersemangat dan berani berjuang. The translation is, the progress of a nation does not depend on its population size, but depends on its young people who are full of enthusiasm and brave in their struggle. So today, we would like to explore this topic in the realm of unity, cohesive and caring society. And from this, we hope that 1 + 1 + 1 will not equal to 3, but will equal to 111. So without further ado, I would like to call Prof. CY to actually start the ball rolling. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Sharu. Very good evening, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you very much, Haji Jamal, for inviting us here. Well, I share Jamal's sentiment that we are living in a very precarious world, indeed. But then the youth actually gives us a lot of hope. Now, what is the definition of hope of youth? According to the dictionary definition of youth is the experience of being young, which is a very relative definition. According to the UN, youth is between 15 to 24 years old, and Malaysia officially adopts this definition. So if we take this age definition, some of us qualify, some of us can only claim to be youth or young at heart, like what Brother Jamal mentioned. Now, when I was a youth, when I was 17 years old, I was studying in Australia. I was doing I think I've just entered uni. Then I was I think I was doing my year 12 and then just before entering uni. And that was in 1997. And in 1998, I entered uni in Australia. And I noticed that when I entered uni, suddenly overnight, in sometime between the beginning and mid of May, that some of my classmates from Indonesia disappeared. And also within the period of 1997 and 1998, some of my Malaysian classmates disappeared. And then I found out that their family business went bust. It was during the Asian financial crisis. And so there was a very impactful time when I was, in my formative years of youth growing up. But I think you guys had it harder. You've canceled 3 years of your life due to COVID-19. The impact was probably more hard hit because it's a global pandemic and it was a global crisis in terms of health, right? And so, you guys are survivors. You're resilient. And we see now, looking around KL, it's a city that is thriving, exciting, with a lot of youthful energy. And this energy comes from you guys. Some of you have emerged stronger, while other social problems started to emerge during the COVID period, that we saw a lot of vulnerabilities started to surface, and a lot of youth actually became quite mentally challenged because of what had happened, right? So we see that we are now living in the crossroads of paradox. Now, this era is characterized by this paradox where we have unprecedented opportunities, exciting times, and also unprecedented dangers and precariousness that we're living in. Now, Brother Jamal has outlined some of these dangers for us just now. We are living in the consequence of industrial revolution, that we see our economy has advanced so much, technology has really revolutionized the way in which economy and production take place, that the environment has also suffered a lot of degradation. And now we are living in that consequence where we see climate change is no longer something theoretical, but something that we are experiencing, with very extreme hot weather and then coming with very extreme rainfalls. We are the custodian inheriting a broken earth. Geopolitically, as what Brother Jamal has outlined just now, we are in a very precarious time, that we see the Russian-Ukraine war. Anything can happen. We see the US-China tension. We see the tension across the Taiwan Straits. And we see the South China Seas, where we are, is a continuing issue that could spur, dangerous times ahead. And these are close to our doorsteps. We are living in a very intertwined global economy. Now, COVID has told us how intertwined it was, that, not just economy, but also in terms of public health, right? Just one place that is infected very quickly globalize, the infection to the rest of the world, right? And then we see the supply chain disruption, we see labor disruption, we see all kinds of issues happening in our world today. AI, as what Brother Jamal has highlighted just now, is replacing some of our jobs. We need to really think very hard about new set of skills that should be trained in university, because a lot of what we are teaching now will have no relevance. We're not talking about in 50 years time or 30 years time or 20 years time, but in 3 to 5 years time. Now, just looking at ChatGPT, it has changed the way in which assignments have to be structured, right? Because writing essays can be replaced by computers that write better essays with better English than what I can write myself. So how then can we actually change the structure of assessments, the training for young people? What different kind of skill sets will this age and the next generation need? Now, leaving aside all these very depressive thoughts and precariousness, we are also living in a very exciting time. Never before we have seen such advancement in human technology and global connectedness, right? Many of us will not be able to survive one day without our mobile phones, right? A lot of young people get your assurances, get your identity all surrounded by, the number of likes that you get in your social media. Now, without which you find yourself in an existential crisis. We lived in such kind of virtual connected world, but sadly, we feel lonely and very disconnected socially. So it is that kind of paradox that defines our age. However, youth you guys over here can be the driver of change. Now, when we look at all these potential issues, in our society, in our age today, you can be the driver of change because you are free of a lot of historical baggage that your predecessor, your father's generation, your grandfather's generation have inherited, especially those that have experienced colonialism, that they have inherited all kind of racial hierarchies and structures and ideas and thoughts and social structures that were constructed by colonial powers for their own gains. And so we see the society being divided based on primordial identities such as race, ethnicity, class, gender, religion, and so on. A lot of these structures were deliberately played out during colonial times so that divide and rule could be possible. But you are free of such structures. Now, colonial administrator and historian Furnival talked about the plural society when he was in Southeast Asia, especially looking at Burma and looking at Java in the early 1900s. He looked at all these societies where there were a pluralistic in terms of racial makeup, composition of people, that he, especially going to a harbor, right? He would see in the port, there will be the Chinese coolies, there will be Malays, and there will be Indians, and so on, each playing different roles to support the colonial economy. But then he drew a picture about this plural society. Yet he talked about how these people live side by side, but they do not intermingle. They live side by side, but they live separately because there's no political will for them to mingle. Now, are we still living in this kind of society where we live side by side in our plurality, yet we are not talking to each other? Now, youth today, you are empowered by technology. You have the privilege of exposure. Now, even if this might be, Karina, your first time traveling outside Australia, you have exposure, global exposure, right? You don't have to travel out. The internet, all kinds of technologies have allowed you to know things beyond your geographical location. You are able to socialize beyond physical spaces. Now, these are empowering. And most of you would have multiple identities in this global age that we're living in. So in that sense, you have agency of choice. You can make a difference. You can refuse to accept narrowly defined ethno-religious nationalism. You can refuse to label and to stereotype people based on their characteristics, phenotypically, racial characteristics, based on their religion, based on their gender, and so on. You can choose to be different and be yourself, and yet define yourself or call yourself an Australian and a Malaysian and so on. And it is that diversity that define our identity today. You have the choice of casting votes, right? If a government that you deem is corrupt, you vote them out. And we have seen in the past Malaysian elections how powerful the youth votes have been, right, in changing the political landscape of this country. You have the choice to refuse giving the floor to politicians who attempt to amplify differences and scaremonger in order to divide people. Now, your generation, even though you have inherited a very broken world, yet you are empowered to change it. You have the agency to decide what kind of world you want to live in and what kind of society you want to live in. And I think this agency is the key to the kind of society and country we want to see in our future. I'll leave these thoughts to you for now, and then we come back to talk about more later.
Thank you, Prof. CY. Thank you very much for starting out and giving out that placing the canvas to start and giving us a picture of fear, of excitement, of hope, and I think the point is clear. Our young should decide and should move forward, regardless of the situation they are in, and we have so high hopes on our young to actually deliver. I've actually bypassed the introduction of Prof. CY, because if I did, we wouldn't have time. It's so long, so illustrious. You can refer to the book, I think, handed to you on Prof. CY, who has even presented to the UN on many important topics, and also have been advisory to governments and big institutions on serious matters using latest and tech approach in research. Now, let us move to, I think, maybe a slightly younger perspective, a more localized to Malaysia. That's called upon Brother Adli from ABIM. He's the Vice President of ABIM. And he will be, I think, sharing some test cases and research from Malaysia. Please, Brother Adli.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Peace be upon Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, without which that we will not be enjoying the peaceful internally and externally with the religion quality. I will try to share my screen, but I guess I'm still at the backstage of maybe if there's a technical team can support. I'm still waiting for myself to be admitted in the what I call it, this thing called StreamYard. Yeah. So I want to mention earlier that Haji Jamal mentioned earlier about my age and how I try to be useful. And the word that I would like to use is try, because with this world that is so rapid, it's not easy for you to be following the pace, right? There was a time when checkered shirt was a thing, but now I don't think anyone actually wear checkered shirt anymore, I think. Or maybe just you and me. So hopefully there can be a trendsetter, a new trendsetter for this one. Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, this is the screen. Can I control? Okay, all right. If you don't mind, can you actually take up your phone and scan that barcode? We'll try to do some survey. I'm sorry, I have to send. I mean, I just feel much more comfortable standing while speaking. So I can actually monitor how many of you have actually entered the page. Or if you can't scan, you can actually go to ahaslide.com/1leku. Right? Yeah, I'm still at backstage. I can't share my screen. Did you manage to get in?
We need to move slightly. All right.
And this is also one of the attempt, right? And because I was told that I'll be speaking to the youth, and I think this is much more better way, I guess, to keep you guys engaged when it comes to presentation. But of course, technology, you're on the show. Okay, that's me. And then I share present, share screen.
Okay.
I can share my screen, but can you put it, those who are actually in charge of the stream yet? I've already shared my screen here, but it's not showing my window. Oh, tak semua boleh masuk. Oh, because you're using, no, if you can allow me to share my screen, it'll be okay. It's not.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Okay, this is my screen. Okay, now you can try it and scan again, because I think this one you can actually go up to 200. So this is my account. Yeah. Sorry about that earlier. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so this is the screen. Or you can go ahaslides.com/IIPC 2023. It'll be just a short one, I promise. If you can join, and then so I think there's about 11 of you who's already in, and we try to see how many of you that can actually join this session. While waiting, maybe you can just try a little bit of, for those who are not familiar with AHA slides, I can tell you COVID changed my life, and it's one of the things that I learned from COVID. It just forced you to change and making sure that there's ways of how you can keep engaged, right? Okay, now at least there's 30. And for those of you who can't join, later on you can just switch to ahaslides.com/IIPC 2023. Yeah. So I want you to answer the first question. Yeah. Which country are you from? Just want to check. And I'm sorry, I mean, it's quite limited. And I know I just got to know there's someone from Egypt as well. But I remember when it comes to the registration form, it only listed these few countries, and I have to put the others. I don't like to mention names of others, but unfortunately, just for so most of us is coming from Malaysia, and some of you come from Australia, and quite a good number of those of you coming from the other. So we didn't manage to get someone from Singapore, Taiwan, or even Brunei, Prof. You're not there. But it's okay. I mean, it's just an exercise, just making sure that you're familiar. So these are the percentage of participants that is inside this. So I just need to settle this. Yeah, do you think that is the real good, the greatest of all time? I mean, I want to know from this room. I have my own belief, and I call it as a belief, as a faith. But who do you think is the real GOAT, greatest of all time when it comes to football? Yeah. So I'm guessing Ronaldo is. I mean, my assumption and presumption. You can click this link on top, yeah? I mean, or ahaslides.com/IPC. So yeah, Messi now is actually getting more numbers. So I guess in this room, at least we can be in one team, yeah? Because I also believe that Messi is the greatest of all time because of his ability. He's actually all-rounder as compared to Ronaldo. You can dislike me, you can put your dislike if you want. And do you like K-pop? I just want to check. But in this room, how many of you are K-popers? Yeah, they are basically into this K-pop, and so that's why I write. There's only or no. I mean, because from my experience, there's only two groups. If you really like it, or if you really don't like it. Yeah, quite number. Okay, interesting. So there's quite majority of us that are not into K-pop. Yeah, I mean, I don't know who's those who are in the back, but maybe you can, from this experience, you can also learn who are these people behind. But they're quite, the way how I say it, the reason why I put K-pop is because how influential they are, and there's actually quite a number of theses that are written on the influence of K-pop into this world. And as you can see, BTS got called into the UN even, one of the groups or band that managed to get into the UN and speak to the leaders of the world. So next we go heavier, right? I mean, can you just tell us in one word, who are you? Who am I? Ask this question to yourself, right? Who am I? In one word, what that word would be, yeah? If this question is posed to you, give it a deep thought and just write. So there's peace, confused. I like the handsome one. I like the confidence. We need this kind of confidence in life. Yeah, I'm human, hero, unique, leader. There's a word there, Muslim, advocate. Yeah, I'm myself. I'm a woman. I'm tired. Maybe because of the long flight. There's someone who's opportunist here. Okay, that's good. That's good. So you see, maybe you can find an opportunity to speak on the stage as well later on. I'm bold. Yeah. And what else? There is also a scholar with us. There's an activist, unique. So this will be the kind of answer that you respond, and there are still few participants are typing. But this is basically, the question goes back to who am I? And this actually goes back to the reason why are we having this conference. It's a question of identity. And I want to show you this, yeah. The reason why you wrote this earlier, because I don't set a framework or force you to choose who are you. You can explain on yourself, or you can describe yourself to others. Who are you at the moment when I ask you that question? But there are those who don't have that opportunity. So this is one of the workshop that ABIM did. We did, I think, about 20 workshops all over the country. And we asked them about their identity, but we limit them to this question. I'm sorry it's in Malay, but then the question is, how is best to describe yourself, right? There are three answers. One is, are you prefer to describe yourself as your ethnic? Either you're Malay, Chinese, Indian, indigenous people, Melanau, or Iban, and others, because we're doing it to all over Malaysia. Or second, are you describing yourself, are you prefer or more comfortable of describing yourself as to your religion? Are you a Muslim? You know, remember there's one earlier that mentioned that he or she is a Muslim. There's also a question of that are you a Christian? Are you a Buddhist? So this is basically an identity, a question of identity. So they identify themselves, prefer more to on religion. And also the other one, which is a country for Malaysia. So as you can see, they are up and down. Yeah. And someone that in Malaysia especially, there's always this debate. Are you Malay first or are you Malaysian first? And this is kind of question that even I, as a Malay Muslims, have been always been posed. But it is never an issue actually. Yeah. I mean, because what Prof said, Prof CY said, that you can have multiple identity. And when I show you earlier about the question of Messi, Ronaldo, the question of K-pop, that too is your identity, right? So if you even open your WhatsApp now, you can look at it. You have multiple identity. You are maybe you identify yourself as someone that play football, right? You still have a WhatsApp group that is every Friday night you just play football. So you have that identity. There's also an identity of yourself who actually like to play games, console, or so these are all part of identity that you can carry along with yourself. But it only become a problem when you are forced to pick your identity. And for Malaysians, I will ask only Malaysians, at which time that you think that you're forced to choose your identity? Anyone can answer? At which time that you are put in a position to ask yourself your identity? Election, okay, election. Any other thing? When you came here, what did you do? Register, right? But thankfully that on the register form, it doesn't ask you about ethnicity. But if you're Malaysian, if you're going anywhere in the government setting, or even if you want to enter school, or even you want to go to public university or hospital, one of the questions I will ask you is, are you a Malay, Chinese, Indian, and the other? So you have to put other and you have to write your own identity or your ethnicity and that kind of stuff. So these are the kind of questions. So what I'm trying to say is, while you are able to have this multiple identity, there will always be someone who force you to make a decision on who you are as depending to identity. So this put us as us and them, right? If I put you in earlier in the situation where you need to tick a box, right? So this box has put you as us and them. My box is I'm a Malay, and the others are Chinese, Indian, and the other groups, right? And the problem is when you have this us and them mentality, subconsciously, then you tend to see the other as someone that is different from yourself, right? That you will always look at that the other generally, and this is what is called as stereotype, right? And stereotype is something that is difficult and it's really important, but important for us to address to. And in at least in this my last 5 minutes, I actually want to making sure that you understand that your ability to change this and the need for you to actually look into this. So there is this video that I would like to play, and this is actually the impact of stereotyping. Either it's nurture or nature. I will explain to you earlier, but let's watch this video first. Sorry. You can also watch your phone. Second, kan kiri.
Quale delle due è bella? Qual è quella blu? E qual è quella? Quale è cattiva? Qual è buona? Perché? Quale è cattiva?
So stereotype actually leads to prejudice, right? And it's, as you can see, that even someone who subscribed themselves as the target group can also be a victim of prejudice. As you can see, those who selected, I mean, they are basically, from African descendant. And what happened is he or she at that time decides that the one who looks the skin is much lighter is a good one, even though she admits that she is the one who is more subscribed to the other doll, which is much more darker skin, right? But even he or she at that time become a victim of prejudice of the community that he or she was made to believe that even though someone who is in the same color is actually bad, right? So there's the question of, is stereotype and prejudice is something that is nature or nurture, right? Let's go to the next page. And to the even effect, so because of the stereotype, is internally, is a thought, and then you have this prejudice, it doesn't impact others until that that you didn't stop it and it become further as discrimination, and that's where the problem starts. And in the slides, you can see that that I posed this question to all these 20 groups, 20 workshops that we did. So each workshop, there's about 50 to 70 youth. They are ranging between 16 years old to 25 years old. So the question that was posed to us after asking about their identity is that, do you think that everyone is born as equal in rights and dignity? Consistently in all those 20 workshops, right? There's about 15 to 20% of youth that responded that not everyone is born as equal in dignity and rights, right? And there's always this question of why, right? We want to ask deeper, but unfortunately we didn't manage to go deeper because some of them, they are not really, comfortable of sharing this. Like I said, because stereotype and prejudice is something that's internal, it's in your head, but you are, I mean, the way how I say it's good enough that someone that might not have, in a position to actually explain. And there's a danger to this, right? Because someone said, no, it's no harm. I mean, having stereotype and prejudice, there's no harm at all. But if you look at this research done by George Stanton in this 10th stage of genocide, genocide means it's an ethnic cleansing, right? It's all begin at classification. It's all begin at symbolization or stereotype and prejudice that we have mentioned earlier, and then it becomes discrimination. So this is actually the root or the path to evil, you know. So and what most important thing is that according to George Stanton from Genocide Watch, is that at each stage preventive measures can stop it, right? So it can happen at anywhere at point of time, but at every stage you can actually stop it. And what we're trying to do here is making sure that we can stop 1, 2, 3 from happening even before it goes deeper. And I just want to show you how intervention works. So in 2019 or 18, there was this debate about Jawi. So Jawi is an Arabic letter but written in Malay language, right? That is, the government decide that it will be inserted into the Malaysian textbook syllabus for school children. There's a lot of opposition going on this because they're saying that this is another ethno-religious attempt by the government and everything. So there was a huge debate. Every day there will be left and right coming from different communities just attacking each other. But at that time, we did this camp. We call it Muhibah camp between ABIM and Donzong. So ABIM, we have our own private Islamic school, and Donzong is a private Chinese school, which means that these two schools have never talked to each other before. But by doing this workshop, as you can see the numbers and everything, clearly after we did that workshop, so that is, we did a pre and post survey. So the pre, as you can see, what we want is, we don't want the black one. I mean, I'm apologize, but the color is black. Yeah, so the black meaning that you have this negative perception of the other community or the other groups, right? And after we did the workshop and everything, you can see there's more green now. It's getting better now. There's no less negativity or perception towards the other. But what interesting about this research is that we also did another survey a month after, and this is what happened. Again, yeah, let me show you the before after. So there's a lot of green there, after the workshop and everything. But then after the camp, after a month, it's like, again, there's an increase to show that intervention works, right? When you go into the community and you do workshops and everything, people will change. People have better understanding. They have interacted and they have positive perception of the other. But then, after a month, things change, right? So our hypothesis is that what changed this is actually their life experience after the 1 month. So meaning that even though they have left the room, like us, we are in a room, we are doing okay in each other. But after we left the room, we have a different kind of experience that made us change our view of the other. Which means that even though intervention works, but it needs to be a constant reminder that you have to look positive of the other. And this is where what is tiring. And as you can see, the picture of Jim Carrey is really what we have. I mean, it's so frustrated because it's so hard to conduct the workshop, and really it was not that good. But I think we learned from this experience. But it's a cure to us and them, and this goes back to the question of is prejudice and stereotype, is it nature or nurture? There is this book called Nature of Prejudice by someone with the name of Alport. I'm so sorry. You can see Nature of Prejudice, Alport. You will see the first thing that he said, one of the chapter is about law of least effort. According to him, organism tends to, or human basically loves the easy way, right? You understand what I mean? So if you're going somewhere, there's a highway and there's a long way. Which one will you choose? Highway, right? Because it's an easy way. Even our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam teach us to take an easier path for you, right? So apparently, according to Alport, is that it is our law of nature that we try to do something that's easy. And remember, this law is actually under the book of Nature of Prejudice. So he said that prejudice comes from our laziness to make a decision. So it's easier for us to see people in a box. So these people act like this because he's coming from that community instead of looking deeper of that person. You understand what I mean? Yeah. Okay. So that is one. So in order for us to fight against this, and I call it openly by fighting against this racism, you have to accept your own biasness. You have to admit that you have your own internal stereotype and biasness and prejudice. And only by acknowledging, then only you will find a solution to it. So number one is that you need to admit your own biasness. And that goes to the blind spot. I mean, if you're not familiar in this concept, I mean, I think if you have a license, you will know what this blind spot is. There are an area that you basically cannot see, right? So if you are taking this exam for driving, one of the important things the instructor will ask you to do is remember to be careful of that blind spot. And you will only be careful after admitting that you have a blind spot, right? Because if you feel that your side mirror is good enough for you to turn to left and right, you won't actually, you just turn and then without taking, take an extra effort to actually look back and to see at the blind spot. So this is what I mentioned earlier, because in the Nature of Prejudice also talk about this blind spot thing. You have to admit that you have a blind spot, which means that you have a lack of insight awareness. And how you can actually get this insight awareness is by learn, unlearn, and relearn. So every time internally when you see something happen, by having this awareness, you will tell yourself, no, I'm wrong. I need to find deeper why does this group of people actually do this and do that, that kind of stuff. Yep. So, and finally, it's about act. I mean, it's not easy at this hour. I mean, especially become youth. For youth, there's always be question that, actually, especially Malay, budak ni kurang ajar lah, kurang ajar. This word called kurang ajar is always thrown to us, especially when we are trying to do something that is positive, that's against the norm. For example, one of the norm in the Malay community, there is always this idiom. It's not even an idiom. It's actually a word or sentence that a parent will actually do. If you see snake and you see an Indian, kill the Indian first. And it's actually quite consistent. I mean, I cannot remember which research that I read, but there are quite a number of people of certain generation that actually, propagate this kind of story, right? And there's only one type of prejudice and that would have bad intent. So for you as youth, in order for you to fight against this, and of course, as human being and as Muslim especially, is that you have to do it with hikmah rather than, I would like to talk about the other side of cancel culture, but for now, at least you act, but making sure that it's with hikmah, with wisdom. So that's all. So if you have any question, just post it there and then I'll answer it later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adli. Can we give Adli a round of applause? Thank you. Adli has given us an aha moment with the aha slides. And it's quite, enlightening to know that these prejudices and stereotypes can be changed, and only that the intervention has to be long-lasting. Somehow or other, there's a systemic factor that's causing them to return back to their old ways and thoughts. Something for us to think about when we go back, when we talk during dinner and such. Okay, we've gone from the overall issue of youth role in cohesive and caring society. Then we went to Malaysia and look at the research done. Now let us fly off to Queensland, Australia, to meet the youngest panel. Karina is the youngest among us, and she's the true youth among us, I would say. We all, the others are quite old. And she is a leader in the youth community in from the Bunia, is it? Bunia Scouts Group? Banya Park Scouts Group. Sorry for the pronunciation. From Toowoomba, Australia, and she will be speaking about her experience with the youth participation in Toowoomba. Please.
Okay, so hello everyone. Yes, my name's Karina and I am from Toowoomba, Australia. And so I would just like to start off with saying that Australia is a highly multicultural society, especially in Toowoomba. We have no less than 150 ethnicities within the city, which is incredible in my opinion. And so with all this, we have to question. Oh, sorry, we have to question. How do we define a cohesive and caring society? A cohesive and caring society is where everyone matters, no matter where they come from, and everyone is respected. And that is really important in Toowoomba with all these ethnicities and so many different people. And so in Toowoomba, there are many ways that youth and adults come together to form a beautiful community that is cohesive and caring. So one of their ways is Scouts, which is what I am a part of. And Scouts isn't just in Toowoomba, it is a worldwide organization that most countries have. So Scouts is brings together people of all ages over the world with a common goal of empowering young people to be active global citizens. So as Scouts, we pride ourselves on our initiatives involving peace, equality, and sustainable development. So in Toowoomba, our Scout group particularly is involved in environmental stuff and peace. So there are many peace conferences in Toowoomba and peace events that we are involved in and that we speak at and try and involve young people and people of all ages to attend. We also encourage young people to care about their environment. We go across town, we collect rubbish, we collect scrap metal, and we recycle it for good use. Scouts is all about everyone getting involved and helping. So youth leaders is another thing in Toowoomba. So I'm very disjointed today. I'm just going across ideas. I'll get to a point in the end, I promise you. So youth leaders is a group in Toowoomba that is under the council in Toowoomba. There's 24 of us youth. Lena, who is sitting in front of us, used to be a part of it as well. So we work with councillors and we spread the voice of youth. We empower people to talk and give their voice so policies can be put in place that directly help youth and the community in matters that not everyone else can see, that we view and we want to show and we want to help those and provide solutions. So we get about $15,000 as a group that we can use where we see fit. So we create projects as a group individually if we want to. And yeah, we do our best to help the community in any way we can. So so I would like to jump to another point even. So Toowoomba as a multicultural society, we have many people come to Toowoomba who do not speak English. And when you go into community and you cannot speak English, you don't feel as connected. It's hard to meet people, make friends, and to just feel accepted. And so I feel like youth in families play such a big role in this. When youth come to Toowoomba, they go to schools and they meet many people and they learn the language quicker than their families. And so when they go home, they can teach their families and they can help the family adapt to a new country. And so I've seen this with many of my friends' families and meeting their parents. They have to translate for me and they have to translate for other people coming into the household. But over time, you see how the families can learn my language and I can understand some of theirs, and you see connections form and you see people understand each other, and it's really beautiful. It's just people going out of their way to understand other people and help each other, and I find that really beautiful. And that is what we see a lot of in Toowoomba. So when we think of youth playing a part, we don't just pop out of the ground and say, I'm going to help everyone. What am I going to do? We have to have some kind of influence on how we act. And so a lot of that comes from family, from adults and others. But we also spend a lot of time with each other. Youth have such an impact on each other. And so another role that youth play is it's being role models for other youth. So we have to show empathy, kindness to each other for everyone to show that to each other. So, yes. So putting this all together, what is the overall role of youth? I believe it is to learn. The role of us is to learn and then develop those ideas further to teach others. So we learn from others and then we create our own ideas and add on to them, and then we teach back to the community. So that's just a little piece of what I wanted to say. So thank you.
Okay, it's good. I'm so I would say so delighted that people in Toowoomba empower their young. To me, that's very important. There was writing, I think, by Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers about the 10,000 hour rule that enable anyone that is trained for 10,000 hours to become world class. 10,000 hours is about 10 years. And if we empower our young at 17, by 27, maybe she will become the prime minister. Now we have these examples everywhere, and it's important for us to empower our young. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, let's open the floor for questions. To those who want to ask questions, can you please come to the mics and please introduce your name and from which organization are you from? Please, I would invite the floor. Anyone? No? Okay, we have one. Thank you. Is it on?
Is it on? Yes. I'm young at heart too. My name is Scott McGrath. I'm with the Toowoomba delegation. I was at a conference today already, and I'm the cop in the room, apparently. Do you know what a cop is? Yeah. So at my previous conference I just came from, they didn't remember my name as Scott, but they remembered me as the cop in the room. My question is to all the panelists. Who do you look to for inspiration? So that's a simple question, but I'd like to hear from each person. Who do you look to for inspiration? Thank you.
Can we have more questions? Any other questions? Anyone? One, two. Okay, let's have our panelists to answer the first question. Adli, you want to go first?
Bismillah. So for me, it will be, what do you call that? What's the word there? It's not corny, but it's actually something that is, that as usual, if you ask any Muslim, then they will answer Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And I'm saying this in wholeheartedly because there's a specific reason to it, right? Because he show us the way that action speaks louder than words, right? He's a real revolutionary. He's a person who have this idea, and I think in this current word of youth now, you call it as woke. Prophet Muhammad was really woke at that time when there was a lot of issues and tragedy that's happening around the community. But he took himself out of the community. He went to go Iraq, take a time, reflect to himself, reflect on the community. So if we can apply that to our life now, that's actually what happened now in the time of the Jahiliyyah, where everyone is just rapidly looking for something for leisure. I mean, they do a lot of deep, weird stuff, just making sure that they feel fun, right? So if you are with it, if you live in that community, you won't be able to reflect yourself. But what Prophet Muhammad did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at that time was actually to run away from that noise and then try to find a time with God and with himself to see. If you've ever been to Goiran, you will see that from the place you can actually see Makkah, right? And then I'm guessing that is something that I always happy to follow him because he lead the way and he do it with hikmah. So I mentioned to you earlier about this cancel culture, right? So nowadays, and you can tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, this work culture always comes with cancel culture. So unfortunately, right? When you work, you immediately force others to accept your view, and you will basically cancel him if he or she didn't accept your view. For example, when it comes to racism, we mentioned about addressing or attacking racism, right? But the bad thing about cancel culture, you will just polarize them for even further. You are racist, and hence you need to live in an island. Just stay away from our community. But what Prophet Muhammad did was he wasn't, he didn't do that. What he did is engage. He convey with his full belief and understanding that he is not there to convert, because that was not a role of a prophet. Because if a role of prophet to convert, then who are we to say that the prophet has failed to convert everyone as Muslims, right? Because his duty is to result, is to convey. And then I'm guessing in my own journey of understanding myself and the other, in the pursuit of fighting against racism, is that I will continue to convey. Whether you accept it or not, that's beyond me. And I'm guessing that's the reason why I will answer Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Thank you.
So I would like to take this back to what I was saying as family. I have to say I look towards my mum the most, and I know you would hear this a lot, but from other people, and it's true, because my mum is the first one that taught me kindness. She taught me respect. She showed me how to live life, really. She is such a confident person, and she pushes me to do my best every day, which is what I would say all families do. And so I always have to take it back to that. And she pushes me to come out of my comfort zone, and I kind of push her to come out of her comfort zone too. It's back and forth. We help each other. And she pushed me to speak today as well, because I find it very difficult to speak in public spaces, but she keeps on telling me, you'll do okay, you'll do great, you're gonna do it. Are you? And so I have to mention her today because family is what gets you through life, and they teach you everything. So thank you.
Thanks for the question, Scott. It's actually quite a difficult one for me. I used to look up to religious leaders for inspiration. And then I look up to scholars for inspiration. And then I realized that all these people actually have their own failings. They have their own weaknesses. After all, they're human beings. Then we start to see, people that I looked up to as inspiring suddenly fell because of certain scandals. Either financial scandal, sexual scandal, all kind of things. So I stopped looking at people who are in a pedestal for inspiration. I started looking around and actually find that ordinary people in our neighborhood, in our everyday life, they're actually inspiring. People who gave up a well-paying job and decided to change career halfway to open a coffee shop. I find that inspiring. I find that the two young co-presenters, panelists, very inspiring in their work, the things they're telling us and so on. And I find inspiration nowadays mostly from our everyday people, everyday occurrences, just, going to a coffee shop and look at how people think of, the ways in decorating the space, inviting people to taste their coffee, or just do something different from hundreds and thousands of other coffee shops so that they have certain kind of product differentiation. I find it inspiring. So, I would encourage us to look for inspiration in our everyday life. Just look around us and try to find inspiration in each other, rather than looking at someone higher up there and think that because you'll be disappointed like me, and it's unfair for us to put people on a pedestal and expect them to be perfect, because they never most of them never want to be there to start with. So yeah, just look around. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all. I have a list of my own, but I have to expose. Actually, I asked ChatGPT. Prior to coming to this forum, I asked loads of questions to ChatGPT. Who are the idols? Who are the leaders that generations look up to? So they come with there's a lot of names. For example, the baby boomers or silent generation pre-World War would put in like Rosa Parks. I mean, young people will not even know who Rosa Parks is. Martin Luther King, Mandela. Okay, let me just share with you what ChatGPT answered when I asked which are the artists and film stars who are popular among the generations. For the pre-World War generation, the silent generation, it is Frank Sinatra, Audrey Hepburn. Okay, for the baby boomers, Jamal, you want to answer? The Beatles, Clint Eastwood. For the X generation, Madonna, Tom Hanks. For the millennials, we have lots of millennials here. Beyonce. Beyonce, questionable. Huh? Tell ChatGPT. Leonardo DiCaprio. And then Generation Z, Billie Eilish. Timothy Chalamet. I don't know who this is. I'm old, I suppose. And Generation Alpha, Disney stars, animated characters, they do not have enough numbers on them. It's okay. Because of the interest of time, actually, our next presenter is here. Dr. Alwani is here all the way from Port Dickson, about 2 hours away. And we have to cut short our forum. But before we end, I would like to call upon the panelists to actually give takeaway messages, maybe 1 minute each to the audiences for us to bring back to our communities. Maybe we can start with Prof. CY first.
I actually find that a youth has a lot to offer. So if you think that there's nothing much that you can do, you're wrong. I know that you are living in quite a depressing time, because well, from where I came from Brunei, youth unemployment is very high. So a lot of my students, when I look at them, I know that 1 out of 3 of them will not be able to get a job because of the current economic situation. And sometimes I don't know how to encourage them to be hopeful, because they've invested so much of their time in their studies, hoping that they can get a good career, but that's not going to happen. I'm not going to fool them. But yet, despite those challenges, I have seen how the ways in which the youth behave in Brunei has changed. If you know anything about Brunei, maybe I need 1 more minute. We are a very complacent country. It's a highly welfare state with a lot of subsidies from the government, from the oil money. So it's a petrol money that is driving the economy and the wealth. Now, and it's a tax-free country. The government actually gives handouts to most of the population. So people are very complacent. And when I first returned to Brunei to work in about 6-7 years ago, I remember my students who are about to graduate. When I meet them after graduation, I ask them, "What are you doing now?" They say, "I'm sitting at home, waiting for the government to call me for a job." And so at that time, about 60% of the population is absorbed by government ministries for public service jobs. But then the oil prices, there's an oil crisis in the about 2016, and the whole economy sort of slowed down, and we went into a pretty deep recession, which took us about 5 years to recover. And then COVID hit again, so we never recovered. And then we start an upward swing at the moment. But then in all those years, I've seen that, at first the youth were sitting at home waiting for the government to call them for an interview to get a job in public service, to them started selling coffee, baking cakes, and so on, and taking their fate onto their own hands, wanting to feed themselves and also wanting to do something different outside the government, right? And we started to see more and more NGOs started to start up from youth, and then they become more and more entrepreneurial and so on. And then they were forced out of the cocoon of comfort with government provision to now, we see in 7 years, a more independent, less reliant youth in Brunei. And I thought, that was quite an amazing transformation. And it was because they were forced. So sometimes hard times really shape diamonds. And I think you guys are in these very, very hard times at the moment. And I'm quite confident that you are going to emerge as a lot more resilient than the previous generations, if only you would really try to transform yourself and then take the agency of change upon you. Right. Okay.
Adi?
I would say take any opportunity you can to get involved in your community. I mean, you'll be amazed at the wonderful people that you meet along the way, and you'll be amazed at what you learn about your community too. I've lived in Toowoomba all my life, and every day I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you for telling me." And then it's just amazing. And you'll be amazed at what you can do as well to just help do anything you can. I would not be here at all if it wasn't for these people and, just being involved and getting to share some messages. So get involved and just help out in any way you can.
So key takeaway, because I mentioned to you earlier about this law of least effort, right? So the key takeaway is take an extra effort, right? I mean, keep reminding yourself, put yourself outside of your comfort zone. If you're not familiar with someone who is different from you, force yourself to talk to them. You will learn so much thing from them. So that's number one. And second is that I would like to share, because Haji Jamal keep, whenever he introduced me, he would say, Lawyer Adli, Lawyer Adli. There was this story, yeah? I was with my master, I was doing my chambering, Amiga Srinivas, and at that time, she asked me, Adli, do you like to sprint or do you like marathon? And my answer to her is basically I was a sprinter. 100, 400, 200 was actually my event. But she said then life is a marathon. What she's referring to is legal profession is a marathon. Once you enter the race, you need to make sure that you finish the race, right? So I mentioned to you earlier about this extra effort thing. I mentioned to you earlier about how things change after a month, right? Because it's a marathon. I mean, it's not a one-off event. If you involve making sure that it's a marathon, which means that give yourself time to also to recuperate, take time to appreciate, learn from your mistakes and everything, and take it one step at a time, to make sure that you will finish the race, right? So I'm sharing those two things: take extra effort and run this marathon. Thank you so much.
Thank you all panels who have shared with us very important insights. Thank you very much. let me just, before I close, let me just share with you a secret recipe for the Malaysian unity. Jamal would know. Every Malaysian should know. Our recipe for unity is actually food. We share food all the time, all the festivities. We have our weddings where we go to each houses for Hari Raya, for Christmas or Chinese New Year. It's ingrained into the hearts of Malaysians. That is a common denominator in Malaysia. And my advice to our friends from Australia who are here, your trip is not complete without durian as your prior to going back. Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being a great audience. Hope you have a fine time and enjoy yourself for the next session. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much to the moderator, Tuan Haji Shahrul, and the respected panelists. I thought that was a very interesting forum session with many interesting stories there. And I especially like Shahrul's suggestion that you should not go back without trying durian first. So with that, I think again, we have to move on to the next session because we're already late. So it's my pleasure now to introduce or to welcome Dr. Alwani Ghazali as our next speaker, who will be talking on dialogue as a tool towards the principles of a cohesive Madani society. So with all due respect, please.
Assalamualaikum and a very good evening to all participants of this conference. Thank you very much, especially to the organizer, Tuan Haji Jamal, for having me today. I would like to have the slides, please. Okay, to cut it short, I will be speaking about dialogue and how dialogue will work as a tool for a cohesive Madani society. All right, next one. So since my talk is only, it's actually a sharing, is only during 30 minutes time duration. So we will be focusing on two keywords here. And the keywords are dialogue and Madani. What are they? Next slide. So what is dialogue? What is dialogue? Perhaps most of us assume that we have understood what dialogue is, whereas some of us might have understood it wrong by putting the idea of a debate as a dialogue, especially in Malaysian context, I would say. Perhaps this is not new. Thank you. Perhaps this is not new in other contexts, but in the Malay archipelago, I would say, especially in Malaysian context, there are things that we need to restudy before we say that we really have grasped this particular word, this particular concept. So dialogue is actually different from debate. To look at it in a very simpler manner, etymologically, the dialogue is from two Greek words, dia, which means through, logos, words. So simply it means through words. By that, the process of dialoguing is actually so fluid. It involves two or more minds exchanging thoughts in a very relaxed manner, flexible manner, okay, in a very safe environment. Therefore, if we look at the scholars who define dialogue, can see that Leonard Swidler, for example, he emphasized on having people from different minds or having people of different views on a certain issue. So there is no point of having similar people. I mean, people of similar views in one place, because there will not be any new idea. No innovation can be made. No new resolution is made. No creativity can be produced. Differing views. As for Muhammad Abu Nimar, who is also one of the trainers in KAISIT, King Abdullah Abdul Aziz International Center for Dialogue, he sees dialogue as a safe space, a container for people to surface their assumptions, question their previous perceptions and judgments. So the words used there are very important. We have our own assumptions. We have our own judgments about things. The first time we look at a person, maybe that is some idea about the person. That's how the human brain works. But do we keep that first impression throughout our life, or is there any effort to change the first impression? To change the first thought that we have about the person? So that's the assumption. But this having a safe space is dialogue. A point to ponder is, do we have enough safe space in our context, in our schools, in the universities, in public spaces? Thanks for organizing this. Okay, according to KAISIT, the center that I mentioned just now, King Abdullah Abdul Aziz International Center for Intercultural and Interreligious Dialogue, this center says that dialogue is an emphasis on questions, inquiry, co-creation, listening, which is actually 50% of the process of dialogue, the uncovering of one's own assumptions and those of others. We discover the thoughts of each other. We discover the values that each other brings. A suspension of judgment and a collective search for truth, searching for truth together. All right, this is actually the idea, the definition given by Quebec Education Ministry. To simplify, Quebec Education Ministry sees that dialogue has two dimensions. The first dimension has to do with the inner process of a human being, whereby a human being is processing the thoughts inside the mind, organizing how am I going to deliver this point to that person who understands this issue in such a way and who have this particular background, upbringing, etc., etc. Okay, now I understand that person in another way. My previous thought, my previous assumption about him is ABC. Now I change my mind about him. Okay, so that's the self-reflection, which happens inside the mind. That's the first process. Second process, or the second dimension, is externally. That's when a person speaks in the process of dialogue, where exchanging of opinions happens. What's the best word to choose to make sure that you do not hurt the other? To make sure that you convey the idea clearly to the other, to make sure that you really know what you're speaking. Sometimes people just assume, I think most are Malays, orang muda kuat, orang muda hebat, orang muda malas, or whatever it is, right? We just put labels on people without really knowing. So with dialogue, the second process is we choose proper words to speak to be able to avoid offensive statement. Okay, so that's about dialogue. What is about Malaysia Madani? What is Malaysia Madani all about? So this is something new in Malaysia. Perhaps Malaysians know this, that Anwar Ibrahim has become our 10th Prime Minister, right? Since October 2022. And this is his idea, Malaysia Madani. Basically, Malaysia Madani has something that we will discuss today. So I've taken these points from the website, the official website of the government. Malaysia Madani is a consolidated and holistic effort to create more humanly principles and practices in Malaysia. This effort is constantly improved through consultation and feedback from the people. This is something new to Malaysians, I would say. Which government before has given this opportunity to us, the civilians, to speak, critique, or perhaps you will be fined, or perhaps ISA is what waiting for you. Think about that. Okay. Second, Madani is a synthesis of Malaysian style. So this is the mold that we have. The shape is it's Malaysian style, which combines the current practices. Yes, it does not disregard the good practices that we have now. But it also comes with new methods designed to deal with the new issues and uncertainties. So when this person is drafting the idea, perhaps he is aware of something called post-normal times. According to Diauddin Sardar, post-normal times is characterized by 3 C's: complexities, chaos, confusion, and amplified further by some S's, that is speed, space, and some other characters. So post-normal times is actually a difficult time that awaits us, especially the younger generations. To face that difficult time, there is a need to design the Malaysian style using some new methods. And this Madani concept comes with 6 core values in the framework. Okay. The good thing about this is that Madani is inspired by the concept of readiness to accept change. Whoever wants to change and accept change, perhaps these people will appreciate Malaysia Madani. What is the mission of Malaysia Madani? The aim of Malaysia Madani is to change Malaysia to become a more prosperous and developed country based on the 6 core values through trust between the government and its people. Trust between the government and its people. Look at that. That's a very important topic, a very important point. Transparent policy and cooperation. Not working. I need help. Okay, good. Okay. Madani vision. To create a future Malaysia with all its potentials. So this idea does not deny that in Malaysia, among Malaysians, and with the current practices, actually, we have something good. We have our own strengths. But what are they? That has to be leveraged. Taking into account all changes that impact the world, aiming to navigate Malaysia in the complexities of post-normal times through the local language, local mood, concept and the culture of local wisdom. So something local is not denied at all, is taken into consideration. Okay, these are the core values of Malaysia Madani. The first core value is sustainability. Second, care and compassion. Third, respect. Fourth, innovation. Fifth, prosperity. And sixth, trust. So the question is, how can dialogue create a Malaysia Madani society which is cohesive? Okay, perhaps at this point you can relate it already. Number one, dialogue brings potentials together because it is a fluid process. It minimizes the gaps between the poor and the rich, urban, rural, young, old, educated, less educated. It is a pathway to consolidate efforts between different ethnicities. We are in a diverse, multicultural society. We have lots of potentials if we really appreciate the existence of the other without racism, without hate speech. We can do better. So with that, dialogue can bring the people together. Number two, dialogue provides a platform of equality because in order for you to be able to speak, converse with each other, you have to stand on the same ground. The other person cannot see himself as superior. The first person cannot see himself as superior to another. They have an equal level, equal chance to speak, equal chance to be heard. With that equality, the government will listen to the people and admit that the role of the government is to serve the people, listen to the thoughts and aspirations from the grassroots. Dialogue creates a space, safe space for discourse. This is where the issues can be discussed in honesty. This is something that we lack in Malaysian context. We avoid difficult issues many times and we simplify things in the way that, oh, don't talk about this. This is a very sensitive thing. We cannot do that because we will fight. We did not attend to that difficult issue. We, in many cases, authorities that do not allow us to hold this kind of dialogue in some spaces. Yes, of course, I admit that there will be controversies. There will be controversies. There will be some sort of conflicts, but there are ways as well to make sure that this thing is monitored and managed well. Did we do enough for that? That's a question. Mentalities have to be changed because globally, the world is moving very fast. We, in our own context, we have all the potentials. We have all this wealth, social wealth, I would say. If we keep on sweep the difficult issues under the carpet, ignore to address them, there will be time that this civilization, the wealth of this social aspect, will be tested. So actually having that safe space is the opportunity to grow our wisdom, to get a better social cohesion. Okay, the next one, the next impact of dialogue or the next role of dialogue for social cohesion is that it allows mutual growth in both. For the people, especially, it allows them to see from the angle of the government, if it involves government and people. If it involves different races, it helps both races to understand the point of view from different perspectives. Okay? It enhances respect from the government to the people, inculcates trust from people to the leaders. So together, progress and development are built. And number 5, dialogue actually facilitates the application of Malaysia Madani core values. Just now we said the core values of Malaysia Madani: sustainable, care and compassion. What kind of sustainability? In this sense, cohesive society. It instills care and compassion between each other because dialogue seeks to understand the other, understand the pain of the other, acknowledge the pain, empathy. Coins mutual respect and trust, stimulates innovation, of course, when different ideas come together, create something new. And finally, it is an early step for prosperity. With that, I would like to end my session with a question, a point to ponder. What does it take to get the right leaders and the right followers for dialogue? Thank you. That's all from me.
Be upon you. My name is Hanif. Saya daripada Australia. Tapi masih cakap Melayu. Doctor, can I check with you because I asked you for clarification. I know this is a beautiful concept, it's something, but it's not a speculation, but I think you will have challenges in reaching out to those people, the kampongs and all that, so how do you tend to, because with all respect, because their mind and has been ingrained and, sort of a different thing, and this is not too good, ni tak bagus, ini all kind of things that could be negative. So I wish all Malaysian very well, because I'm a born Singaporean, so there's a lot of connectivity. Kita saudara masih ada banyak kat sini kan. Jadi how would you see that reaching out to these people? Sorry, I hope not.
You want to hear that? No, you want to go there?
All right. So thank you very much for the question, sir. Indeed, being an advocate of dialogue is in itself challenging. And of course, when we talk about the rural people, the language that they're speaking is really different. The mode of thinking is different. The best thing I would say is, of course, you know better than me. You have the wisdom better than me. But what I observe for the time being is to speak in their language, to live with them, understand what they are going through on a daily basis. They have their own struggles, of course. The basic needs, the basic questions need to be entertained. That's the first thing before we get them to be heard, and before we get more things from them that they can offer. They are actually creative people, but there are lots of efforts which we need to do, especially the leaders need to go to the grassroots, take care of the well-being of the people, and then from there, change the mindset. It's a long-term duty, and it requires lots of courage. Thank you. Yeah, Prof. Hoon.
Thank you very much, Dr. Awani. I'm actually, very encouraged by the concept of Malaysia Madani when PM Anwar first announced it. But then I was thinking also at the back of my mind, how sustainable is this concept? Is it just going to be a political slogan? How substantial is it? And also, how much space has this concept been socialized? I see the slogan everywhere, but then are there a lot of platforms for people to actually discuss about this concept? And do everyday Malaysians actually use these terms, and the discourse that Malaysia Madani actually encompasses?
Thank you for the question. In reality, on the streets, I see many people, I heard many things, many negativities against Malaysia Madani. That is understandable. During the previous ministry, Prime Minister's office, also there were lots of slogans such as Islam Hadari, Satu Malaysia, Keluarga Malaysia, so on and so forth. Yes, we have people who praise these slogans, this frame of thought, but there are people also who criticize this plan. So at this stage, it is very early for us to see how Anwar is really serious about things, because it's actually his 9 month, the ninth month of his tenure. So I have no comment about how politically we would turn into. Just give some space, perhaps. But what I hope more is the change from the grassroots. As much as we have the opportunity to speak up, as an Indian, as a Chinese, as a Malay who does not call for racism, please do so. And please appear more on the social media platform or anywhere else, as long as that appearance or that statuses or the message that you give is actually fighting against hate speech and racism. And that will bring something new to Malaysia, whatever and whoever the Prime Minister will be. Because in the end, it is people on the streets who are going to communicate with each other, either with respect or with no respect. It's up to us.
So Tima Ari, I'm the Australian delegates as well. I understand that the Prime Minister is only in their 9th month, but I just wanted to ask a question in case you knew anything about it. So in terms of this relevant to the youth, is the youth going to be able to give feedback to the government directly in terms of changing some of the rules or the regulations relating to youth directly? And if yes, how exactly, what are some of the services being organized to deliver that to the civilians in the public and the schools?
Thank you very much. That's a very good question, which unfortunately I cannot answer. Because they may have some experience dealing with the government.
Bismillah. The question again is about engaging with the government, right? So I guess that is Jamal asked me to speak because I served in the government for a while in the first Pakatan Harapan in 2018, and I can tell you the challenges. Most of the time, it's not coming from the leadership, but coming from the civil servant, if I may say. And I'm not taking this. It was a long time ago. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say, and then this is with, of course, with prejudice, right? Because we live in the same system, same administration, same political party for the past 60 years, right? So whatever that they do or they did, it's already become a system itself. So when you come in fighting against the system, there are those who gain benefit out of the system that will protect it no matter what. And I don't know whether this is live to how far, but I've witnessed minutes of meetings have been changed. A lot of discussion that is going on beyond. I remember there was this one time there was a policy that everyone so undocumented can go to school, right? So there was already a statement made by the minister at that time. But when we go on the ground at a working level meeting, there is this clear response by saying that this, bear in mind, this is an official meeting, right? So that person coming from that specific ministry responded by saying that he's a minister, he doesn't know anything, he just makes speeches. We are the one who conduct this policy. So I think the number one challenge is how to then you want to change this culture. So it's not easy to change culture. Imagine if you've been eating rice with your hands all your life, and suddenly someone comes in and asks you to eat with utensils, right? So that is culture what I'm saying about. So the government machinery have been in some sort of a culture, and it's really hard to change. That is, we are talking about the ministry, but more of society, right? So yeah, consistency matters, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Alwani, for your sharing, and Brother Adli as well. Now I would like to invite our conference chairman, Tuan Haji Jamal, to give out some tokens of appreciation to the speakers. Tuan Haji Jamal. So first, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Hun to receive a token of appreciation. Old at heart and young. Old, young at heart. And young. Okay, the second, I would like to invite Che Adli Zakwan to receive a token of appreciation. So reversed. Okay, next, I would like to invite Karina O'Reilly to Karina. And next would be our moderator, Tuan Haji Shahrul. Okay. All right. And finally, Dr. Alwani. Okay. Thank you very much, Tuan Haji Jamal. So we will break shortly. But before we break, and we will continue back at 8 p.m. But first, we want to have a group photo in case we miss anyone after this. So if possible, where should they stay? Okay. Okay, so on stage, please, as we arrange ourselves. Cameraman. Oh, cameraman. Oh, I see. So, so the suggestion is just